When you hear Banyarwanda community, Banyarwanda, Ugandan Banyarwanda, it is not to say that Banyarwanda were once aliens and now they are nationals. Banyarwanda are native to this land. By the way, get me right, I also don't think that the head of state, that Museveni, President Museveni, hates Banyarwanda. He does not. But at the same time, I do find personally that there is a certain level of apprehension around Banyarwanda. Uganda is not the first country to have a people whose name as an identity reflects a name of a nationality elsewhere. So it should not be a problem for you to deny who you are so that you do not have a name similar to a community or a nationality of another country.
Greetings from Uganda. I'm Sally Nayombia, host of the Longform Podcast. My team and I traveled to Kampala for a week to meet not only Ugandan Banyarwanda, but also other Ugandans as well. Through my conversations with them, I want to showcase their diversity, their lives, and their challenges. Welcome to the Kampala Conversations. It's 4 conversations with 4 amazing guests. Hope you enjoy them. Hello there. My guest this week on the Longform Podcast is Brian Kabayiza. A Kampala-based lawyer, Brian is a partner at KMA Advocates. We shall discuss his own journey, the challenges he's faced as a Ugandan Munyarwanda, and some of the legal hurdles that the Ugandan Banyarwanda have faced, and his suggested solutions. Before this episode starts, I want to make a deal with you. About 85% of you who watch this podcast frequently haven't yet hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy what we do here, here's the deal I want to make with you. If you hit that subscribe button, I promise you that we will keep making the show better and better in every single way. I hope you choose to come along with us on this journey. Now let's get into the show. Mr. or should I say advocate? Counsel in Rwanda, we call them maître.
Okay.
Maître Brian Kabayiza.
Yes, counsel.
Welcome to the Longform.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sunny. Thank you. And welcome to Uganda. Welcome home.
Yes. And actually, that's what I wanted to start with before we go into this conversation. I'd like to thank you and your beautiful family, your boys and your wife, for hosting us in your home here in the Kampala suburb of Butabika. The meal was amazing.
Thank you.
It was. It's always nice to have a home-cooked meal. I've been here for a couple of days, and whenever I have a home-cooked meal, I feel like, okay, I'm not in another country. I'm in Rwanda.
Sure. Thank you, Sunny. This is home, and the meal is typical Ugandan hospitality. So you're most welcome.
Typical Ugandan hospitality.
Yes.
There was no matoke. You forgot.
Not every meal in Uganda has matoke. But you're right. Being in Uganda right here, I think a matoke would be an essential element of it. Although sometimes, yes, sometimes it's not there. But our kind of menu is very rich with all manner of food in Uganda. Yeah.
Let's start with a question that will allow my viewers, my listeners, an opportunity to get to know you. We sat down over lunch, and I really got to know the kind of man, your story, the kind of man that you are, the kind of story that you have, and the life you've led. Unfortunately, none of that was recorded, so we might have to do that again. You are what they call a Ugandan Munyarwanda.
Sure.
You were born here.
Sure.
Were you born in this area that is Butabika, or were you born elsewhere?
No. True, I'm a Ugandan Munyarwanda. I was born in Uganda, but not in Butabika, obviously. I am an immigrant into Kampala. I was born where my father wasn't staying at the time, but I was born in Masaka. It's a place called Chinoni. People from the west have a number of Chinonis. On the way between, I think, Mbarara and Ntungamo, you'll find a Chinoni. When you go to Rushere somewhere, you'll find a Chinoni. But there is also a Chinoni in Uganda, around between Masaka and Ruengo district. There is a place called Chinoni. And that's where I was born, close 50 years ago. And but at that time, in our culture, and I think it's an African culture, my mother's family lived there, but we lived in the cattle corridor, what became a war zone. So I think when my mother was pregnant of me, for delivery, she moved to a family, and I was born there, although there was also part of my father's family there.
It's really interesting. Every single Ugandan Munyarwanda that I've spoken to, all of them were born in Masaka. What is it about Masaka that made it such a hospitable place for Rwandans?
Well, I think Rwandans or Banyarwanda, but I think Masaka in Uganda, I would want to say there are areas that have pockets of Banyarwanda community. And Masaka is one of them. Namutamba in Mityana area is one of them. The whole of Mwende and the whole connecting to the cattle corridor, former war zone, Chiboga, and even going to Masindi, further in the west. It has, they have pockets of concentrate communities of Banyarwanda. But I think it has a history to it. But Banyarwanda are not necessarily native in Uganda. Banyarwanda are native in the west of Uganda and into Rwanda and maybe other parts of Congo, even Tanzania, I think. But in Uganda, Banyarwanda are not necessarily native. They migrated long time ago. We would talk about probably 100+ years, some of them. In the early 1910s, 1920s, there are waves of Banyarwanda that migrated. So those who are apparently native to Western Uganda, parts of what is Uganda now, were not a part of that migratory wave. The migratory wave came right from Rwanda, and there is a history to it relating to colonialism and who colonized who and how they treated the colonized. So I think the concentrate of Banyarwanda in Masaka area has to do with the migratory wave of Banyarwanda coming that early and finding a colonial policy of cash crop growing around that area, especially coffee growing. People are growing matoke on large scale, and they would easily find labor opportunities in that area. So they settled from 1900, 1910, 20, 30s. That explains the quite big opportunity they found, and they settled.
And you were born in the Masaka area? Is that where you were raised?
Yeah, largely. But as I said, I was born in Chinoni.
Yes.
Of course, after my mother delivered of me, she went back to the cattle corridor, and we lived in the current Chiboga district for a long while. Actually, I will tell you, I am a child, if not a Kadogo of the war zone.
You're talking about the war of the NRA, the Museveni War.
Yes, yes. So by 1980, I was a little boy, but I grew up in the conditions of war, right? And by 82, in the areas where we occupied, there was no Obote influence. There was no Obote leadership. We were literally under the rebel territory.
How well do you remember that time?
I remember very well because by then I was, I'm talking about an age of about 6 to 7 years. Okay, so I was quite cautious, and as it grew up, we moved more into the wars period. I can easily remember what was happening. At least you would be surprised that by 83, 84, my father was a chairperson of a resistance council, village resistance council, where we stayed, around a place called Chigwanya. That's in Bukomero district now. Okay? And as a chairperson of the committee, local council committee, you know, people here in Uganda, majority of people saw this RC system only after January of 86. But for us out there, by 83, we were well established. So my father was a chairperson of RC council, and as a council, they actually mobilized a number of things, including recruits for whatever reason. They had links with the rebel camp deep into the jungle, Rukola. I remember there was a ragtag youth group who you would find one has a grenade, another one, many have sticks. You would be happy to find someone with a gun. And these were local village vigilantes, mobilized through the management of council, but also linking with the military camps. And these, I remember they were called RYs. I did not make anything meaning out of it, but today, if you ask me, I think linking it back to the system that I came to learn of it thereafter, RYs could have been something to do with like resistance youth. Yes.
You, as a young person, because now you're no longer a toddler, you're kind of making sense of what's happening around you. We can try to dismiss it now or to make light of it, but you were literally in a war zone.
Yes.
I have to ask, did that experience not give you a certain trauma as you grew up?
I don't know whether it's a trauma or it's an experience that hardens you and makes you mature prematurely. Because the experience was deeper than just having my father as an RC chairman in the area. As time went on, I don't remember at what period that was, but when you read the history of that war, there is a period and an incident they call the Big Push. So that was a time when primarily where we were and where the Obote soldiers were, there was always like some kind of no man's land.
Yes. So you were in the no man's land?
No. We were into the rebel territory. But in between that area and the Bukomero sub-county headquarters, that was like the headquarters of the Obote soldiers. And in between, they would come and make sojourns, operations and go back. And when they would come, then people had quarter guards. People had quarter guards managed by locals, managed by those RYs, but also in coordination with rebels. Sometimes rebels would get to know and they would lay ambushes. Usually ambushes would yield better on these soldiers on their way back because at that time they would probably have utilized most of their weapons, just throwing bombs here and there, just shooting aimlessly. They were not very cautious and economical with their ammunitions. But so when you would hear of the coming, either by shooting or by people on quarter guards raising, sometimes it would be a hunting trumpet, blowing it, or having a gwanga muje drum, and people would just disappear in the hills. And so these soldiers would just come. Of course, at some point it was almost an offense on the village to have a cock, which would croak, you know, croaking of a cock. That would be considered as one thing that might give a lead to soldiers that there is a village somewhere or there are things to root, yes. But yeah, during that big push, we experienced a very, very unusual stampede and suffering of people. People moved from Nakaseke area, from Bulemezi literally, crossed the river Mayanja, came right into our area, and there was suffering. There was no medicine. People were getting sick. There was no food. People would come, and if they found peeled cassava, people would pick the peels, go dry them, and have porridge out of peeled cassava. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And of course, for those of us who had cattle, cattle, first of all, because of inaccessibility to drugs and the jungle, most cattle just had to, they were dissipated by disease. But also, when people came, people just eat. And I remember inside, beyond us, there were kind of markets. I remember that time we used to call them bivulia. So this, where you had people just giving out cattle, others take those who could have the food crops carried to sell. But in such a place, there was very much stampede. And during that big push is when I think the time when Rijema had to cross into the west, the Renzoris, and then this stampede of people and what. There was an advice that somehow, you know, people would just simply now go back into Obote zone. I think that time I hear there was a guy called Ogora. Ogora was like the commander of the Obote soldiers that was leading that operation. Somehow they had also taken to less killings, and the strategy I think was to pull the people out of Museveni because they thought the people supplied food, supplied everything, gave information, and probably supplied a human resource for recruits. So I think they had taken that strategy of wanting to pull back. But people were also a kind of burden to the rebels, because when you had civilians mixing with rebels, the rebels could not easily have space to fight. So it is in that stampede actually, and the operations that in one morning, I was one of the unfortunate people that was actually captured.
You were captured by the enemy?
By the Obote, yes. Yes.
You were probably, what, 6, 7 years old?
Probably 6, 7 years.
You might have been probably one of the youngest prisoners of war.
Exactly. So I was captured. And
where did you go?
I was in the bush hiding. And there are these guys, Obote soldiers with guns and all that. You know, they were not even walking in the footpaths or what. We were in the bush. We were in the bush. So they come and they come shouting. And I think in my understanding, when I had them approaching, I knew they were going to shoot me.
You must have been terrified.
So I burst out of the bush.
Yeah.
And as I turned around the bush, here was these two tall, dark guys. And one had a big pan. I think they had rooted a pan, a saucepan. And So when I saw them, I fell down to my knees and I raised my hand and said, don't kill me, don't kill me. But the other one, you know, like cocked the gun. This with the pan held his hand, and he must have told him something like, don't kill him, let him carry this pan. So basically they got the pan.
You survived because someone did not want to carry a saucepan.
Exactly. I think 90%, this guy wanted to get the reef.
He was tired of he said like this.
Exactly. So they lift me up, they get the pan, I carry the pan, they put me before them, and we walk. Of course, they had parked several kilometers away. And by the time I was captured, I think they must have been like making a curve towards back where they had parked.
Your parents must have been terrified. Even beyond you, what I can only imagine your mom, your dad.
I was not alone. That day, not alone. That day, not myself alone, but my elder sister was captured as well.
So both of you?
So both of us were captured. And my father, by then, was also a bit down. He was nursing a wound. How he got that wound was another issue, but related to the war. Okay? So, yeah, we were captured. And we must have walked about like 2 hours or something, carrying. So at some point, I told you about chicken. They killed about 2-3 chicken and put them in the pan.
Yes.
And you can imagine some of these chicken were not completely dead. So as it shakes, I feel like my neck is sinking into my chest.
Because you're holding it with your hands.
Exactly. There was a point I thought I wanted to throw it and run because I got tired and they were walking ahead of me. And they could have shot me if I tried. But somehow my other heart told me, don't. I wanted to throw it down and run. I could have been shot, but somehow I persisted. But as we approached where they had parked, because I didn't know where they had parked, but a short distance before where they had parked their truck, we found a home where there was a little pig.
I hope they did not ask you to carry the piglet.
A piglet.
Yeah.
They got it, tied it, did not kill it, and put it in the pan.
So 3 chickens, a pan on the head of probably a malnourished 6 or 7-year-old.
Yes.
You know, I want people to have a full context. You know, we might look at it and laugh, but if you really think about it, I don't know, it almost sounds like, I know it might sound like I'm using big words, but almost seems like a war crime. It almost seems like torture. It seems like an unreasonable amount of cruelty to inflict on a child. You know, it's always good to have that context. You know, when we sit here in beautiful gardens and enjoy highways and convention centers, and to think that just less than a generation ago, 80s, that was someone's lived experience as a child. Such stories, I think, need to be properly told and digested by everyone.
That is true, but I think given how cruel those guys had acted for some time, and with us, especially that if you are in that zone, absolutely you are a rebel. It was worse if you were Kanyarwanda, right?
And did they know that you are Kanyarwanda?
They didn't know. They didn't know. Of course, they didn't know. But no one even asked me. But I think for them it was a favor. I hadn't been killed. That day they killed many people, I tell you. Yes.
Did you see that? Did you see them killing, or did you pass by these?
No, I didn't see anybody killed.
Thank God.
But when we got to the truck, it was short. Otherwise, I wasn't going to manage. It was just about probably 200 meters before.
With the piglet.
And the piglet
chicken.
was small. Otherwise, I would not have managed it for sure. But when I got to the truck, somehow as naive, I felt I wasn't useful to them. I wasn't a young man. I was a little boy. I wasn't an old man. I felt I had given them a service. They had used me for what they wanted. I felt they were going to let me go. So after they took the pan off and threw it in the truck, the next thing I see the guy is lifting me up and right into the truck. Then I knew mine was done. I mean, like, it was almost, it was an unsaid rule. When you crossed and you were captured by those guys, especially you were taken to Bukomero, you would not survive. I knew that was my last day. But when I got inside, I saw a terrible scene in there. There were, I had carried a piglet, but they had big pigs, which they had killed, shot, and lifted into the truck. So there was this blood all over the place. There were children. There was an old lady. So you asked me, did you see somebody who was killed? No, I didn't. But I saw an old lady carrying a baby whose mother was said to either have been killed or threw the kid and ran away. Okay? And apparently, were so many of us. So we got in mix. And we came as the truck was almost starting off. So we didn't spend long and went. And were taken to Bukomero. Basically, we were captured. I don't know whether they treated us as rebels or as collaborators, but definitely they did not give us a good treat that evening. So all of us, apart from the soldiers, of course, all of us got off the truck. When we got to Bukomero, I nowadays pass there, and that house is still there. I think it was a Gombora house or something. And the commander, maybe it was the office of the commander, but they got us out there and gathered there. I spent about maybe 1 hour or something, I don't remember. After a while, I saw my sister. For her, she had not had the privilege of getting a truck. So her captors had walked all the way with other people, of course. And that time, when you got there, either they would pick someone to go and check. If you're a young man, you're most likely to be killed because you're a rebel. At that time, they used to call us Bayekera. If you're a woman, you are going to be married off. Someone is going to take you for a wife. For a wife.
That's rape.
Whatever. So it is in those circumstances of selecting who is going where, some young woman was picked, and she happened to have walked with my sister, my little sister, elder sister. So when the soldier picked her, apparently he was a doctor in that place. Soldier doctors. He had a Mabati structure just next to that sub-county structure, and took her. But she had a presence of mind I didn't understand, to pick my sister and said, no, this is my little sister. I'll go with her. And so she goes, and of course she's taken for a wife, and she takes my sister. So that night, the young boys like me, the very old men, not many, very old women, were all herded in one room like a prison. One room. We were many. We could not sit, we could not stand, rather sleep. We all stood in that room body to body, sweat to sweat, all night. So nature knows no problems. People started susurring, and by morning, we were of course, hadn't slept, but we were standing in a pool
of
a mess.
of feces and
You understand?
and blood
Yes.
and urine.
So by around the morning, I remember when we got out, like the sunrise was up, we were there, and then there was a young boy almost my age. We were just rousing them because they have let us out of the room, and then there comes two soldiers, and they call us, and they say, you are going to fetch water for us. So we go a distance into the barracks. We go to their residential area. They give us some little jerrycans and tell us, go down across the road, there's a swamp. Okay? You fetch water and bring it. So we went. Getting there, we found, as we were approaching, we found we met another dilemma. Here are guys, largely hostile soldiers, but now they are naked and bathing, right at a place where we are supposed to swim. To fetch water. So we hesitate. Do we continue and approach these guys who are naked and bathing? Others are washing. So we kind of hesitated. Then they called us. And they're calling us and say, you, where? You, nyinyi, wayekera, hey. So, of course, they had known that probably one of those children of our age had not come to the battlefield with the soldiers. We had to be part of the captives.
The prisoners.
To be honest, they just asked to pass. We passed, we fetched water, we left, and went back. So when we got there, these guys said, we did not have to leave. We would stay with them.
Do you remember what year this was? Is this still 1983?
Must have been around 80, coming to 84 probably, or 84. It was 84. It was 84. So we must have been 84 towards probably the end of it. We start living with these guys. This young man, at some point, the boy I had stayed with these soldiers. So all we did, what did we do with them? We would stay with them. We would do fetch water. We would wash clothes. Sometimes prepare food. I didn't know how to cook. I would not cook, but you would do probably prepare, if it is cassava, if they are not kaunga and all that. This boy eventually was taken by another soldier, and apparently these soldiers lived in a kind of a tribal grouping. So you would have a tribal groupings of people who spoke Nyankore, Acholi, and where I lived, they were more from the east. So this guy I lived with was called Sanyu, but he was a man from Mbali, a soldier from Mbali.
Bagisu.
He was Mugisu. So we lived there for several months. So I got used. This guy actually liked me. He became like my personal protector. He started telling me he would take me to Mbari, and I would be circumcised and I would be a brother and all that. And of course, severally when we stayed there, there was increasing number of soldiers who would not actually have like shacks in which to live, but pitch tents. And then they had these trucks, the Scanias. There were trucks written on UCTU. Eventually, I don't know whether they had hired them or they had simply commandeered them from the cooperative union. They would come with heavy guns, pulling really guns that had barrels, 12 barrels, 24. They would stage them there. When you are in the Bukomero township, especially at that sub-county, you have a mountain. There's a mountain called the Katera Mountain. and you can see it. So several they would really, one morning they would wake up and they're just bombarding that.
And so they are bombarding the rebels.
And they would have a gun with the recoilless, I don't know, chain of bullets. They would, put it somewhere and just shoot.
During this whole time, now you've been in pretty much a military camp, 6, 7 years old, for months on end.
I must have been now around probably 9.
Wow. So,
9 or 10.
What are you thinking? Your parents must have been terribly missing you. You must have been missing your parents. Did you ever think you'd ever see them again? You'd ever see your family again?
To be honest, I thought they were dead. Because the operation by which we were captured did not seem to have left anybody alive. That was my imagination. So we ceased thinking about our parents. It was a question of, will I survive this war? And I told you I lived in a household that was very much mobilized as a rebel supporter. So in my childhood and during that time, there was an understanding that even when I lived with these guys, I never got convinced they would defeat Museveni. I don't know why. I saw those guns, but my biggest worry was, one day they are going to invade, and I will be gone.
And they'll kill you.
And they will kill me. That was my preoccupation, because the rest I knew they were dead. My sister was also living by the side. We rarely met, okay, but she still lived there, okay. So reprieve came. After a while, this soldier was transferred. And when he was transferred, he actually preferred to transfer with me. So he's transferred to Masaka. And remember that Masaka I've got relatives there.
That's where you were born.
But I have no idea where they live. So we transfer to Masaka. One day we get into trucks and transfer to Masaka. But before getting to Masaka, I think we had like two days in Mpigi. That hospital in Mpigi was like kind of a military garrison or something. We stayed there and went to Masaka. So we lived in the barracks. He had a wife in Masaka. I lived there for
So
some
you're
time.
pretty much like a child in his home.
Yes. But of course, along the way, I had witnessed a lot of things. Where he lived in Bukomero, they slept in the room, several of them. But I remember he had a bed, so he had this propeller machine, green and white, and each time I had nowhere to sleep because of the number of soldiers there. So I would sleep under his bed. And when I went to sleep, he would just say, remember my thing? Make sure it is safe. All right? I had seen many things during the stay in that place. Of course, they gradually brought people. They gradually brought people from the war zone. And they killed them there. I remember they brought a bunch of guys who they said had been arrested harvesting cassava. And one of the guys, there must be about 5 or 6, one of the guys told them he was called Mulengera. And his fate that day was because of his name.
What does Mulengera mean?
The commander to whom he had been brought said, you are Mulengera. I said, now I know. So you are the people, Mulengera. The Mulengera in Uganda means you are the people who see us and blow horns and drum, and so you are the quarter guard managers. He said, no, that's my name. He said, no. So
and he was killed.
Long and short, they were given to a squad.
Firing squad.
They were driven into the forest. I mean the swamp. Bukomero has a swamp. So into the swamp between Katera and Bukomero, we had shotguns. Gunshots. That was it. In between Bukomero and Katera, you had a roadsides of which you would easily find patches of very fertile grass. And you'd know this is a body. This is a body. By that time, the road to Rukora and the road to Katera had been, and then the one coming to Kampala, had been lined up, and you had skulls. So the roads were lined up with skulls, or hung up on small poles.
So, how did you reunite with your family?
So how do I reunite with my family? We live in Masaka, and then time comes, and they say back to the war.
They send you back. They send him back to the war.
Send them. This time not Katera. I mean Bukomero, but Katera. When you go to Katera, we stayed there for a week. There was a mutiny. The guys were not paid. So there was a mutiny. Guys came out and started basically shooting their ammunitions. You'd wonder, you're shooting your munitions, but when the rebels attack,
you won't have anything.
You'll be defenseless. But that's what they were doing. And then there was after that mutiny, or during it, there came military police. So somehow they were suppressed, and as part of dividing and dividing and disintegrating this mutinous group, some were pushed back to Bukomero.
Yes.
And I went with that.
Yes.
And when we lived in the Bukomero for a while, is when my father actually comes with the group that are voluntarily now being brought by Red Cross from the war zone. Yes. Into Bukomero. And
you must have been overjoyed to see him.
No, but I didn't know that he was there until I think it was a market day around there, because there had been many people now. And as I was strolling around, I landed on him.
He probably must have acted like he had seen a ghost.
Yeah, but by that time, there were so many people. Like there was the hospital in Bukomero, there was many people. There were so many people by that time coming from Rukora side.
How does he react when he sees you?
I was with a soldier, remember. I wasn't alone.
Yes.
I don't know whether that was the soldier or another soldier, but I wasn't alone. So so he says, mwana wanje, this what, and so on. And then he talks to the soldier. He says, this is my boy in the language, interpretation here. I don't think that guy understood Luganda or Kinyarwanda, of course. So remember that time, the guy who captured me is no longer there. I am living with other people. So this guy tells my father, no, forget about this guy. He's now a soldier. Okay?
A 9-year-old.
Yes. But my father pleads a lot. There were offices of Red Cross in that place, because people would come, stay a few days, and then Red Cross mobilizes, take them to Mitiana and other places which are safe. So he goes and appeals to Red Cross and says, my little boy, I lost him many months ago or so. I have found him with the soldiers. Could you help me? And the Red Cross eventually goes and talks to commander. And it's the commander who eventually finds out who is this boy, how old is he? And then eventually, after not long, must have been 3 days, they call me to the commander. And I find the Red Cross people, I find my father. And of course, I had come with the soldiers with commander hands me over to my father. Together with my sister, because my sister was still living with the doctor. And when we got to my father, it did not take us a week. My father besieged the Red Cross to take us out of there. And the rest is history. We moved into Mitiana.
It almost sounds like a miracle. You're just surviving those moments because it almost sounds like at any time outcomes could have been extremely different. And it's even more amazing and even more miraculous when now, as a full adult, I'm not sitting across just a man of little substance. I'm sitting next to a partner in a powerful law firm.
Powerful is relative.
Pretty well-established law firm.
Yes.
It's almost a testament to the resilience of yourself, but as well as maybe the resilience of the community that you come from. Now that you are much older, do you often take some time to reflect on those times and the journeys that you've come from? The context of that question is that very often, the Banyarwanda people, we're a people that have gone through so much, but somehow we've survived. And not just survived, but some would say we're starting to thrive even in those challenges. Here we're talking, you were the indigenous Ugandan Banyarwanda, but I can also speak about those who were the refugees, who then liberated their country, fought against genocide, and now, 30 years after, are building a more and more prosperous country. It almost seems like that the harder the challenges that the Banyarwanda face, the stronger and more resilient we become. And your story, I think, is a testament to that strength.
Yeah, I think so. I told you I was about 9 years old or so. So when I left, short while later, because of the circumstances that we're in, I found myself back into my family in Masaka to be able to continue school and all that. And I started school. After primary, it was not a rich family setting. So when I finished my primary, it was again another hard journey to take through secondary school, especially the O-level side. And then A-level, I came to Kampala. I did my A-levels in Kampala. And by God's providence, I was able to get to university. I did law and finished, found some work to do. Again, I didn't have godfathers. I didn't have big family here. I didn't, but it was really God's providence and sheer hard work, and also discipline, resilience about it. Otherwise, you could easily have veered off to go and do little things that would give you what to eat that day and left school. But I went on, and I can tell you right from maybe my senior one to university, I was literally like self-sponsored. Yes, either had to work, be allowed to work and study, or when I grew up a little bit, I would work and then pay and study through. Yes.
It's just that I think, again, these stories I feel need to be told. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing them with me. Now, when we talk about resilience and overcoming challenges, I've spoken to on this trip to Uganda, I've spoken to a few people who are your fellow Ugandan Banyarwanda. And there's a challenge. It seems that no matter what they try to do, they cannot overcome. They've overcome war. They've overcome all sorts of different things. But there almost seems to be a sense of something that they're not able to overcome, and that is almost institutional discrimination when it comes to the question of citizenship and the full rights that citizenship means and what people are able to enjoy as nationals, as full citizens of a country. Now, you're a lawyer. I just want to ask you, have you, as privileged, as well-established, have you had to deal with any kind of special treatment because of the fact that your name is a Munyarwanda name versus, say, if you're called Kafero?
Yes, yes, of course, those instances are there. But begin with, I think generally as part of Uganda and generally as Ugandans, we have had a fair share of tribulations as citizens, general Uganda, talking about no community, no tribe. All of us as Ugandans, we've gone through tribulations, and we've gone through the hard history, and we've gone through the liberation, and we've come to a time when the country has been stable, has been secure, and when the economy has grown. And you would want to have, of course, country always has issues, and it is not a problem if those issues are all shared and experienced equal across board by citizens. Now, but referring to the Banyarwanda community, the special problem has been that maybe I should give you the background. When you hear Banyarwanda community, Banyarwanda, Ugandan Banyarwanda, it is not to say that Banyarwanda were once aliens and now they are nationals. Banyarwanda are native to this land. But just like any other community that has cross-border presence, there has been a time in history here where there has been Banyarwanda that are not Ugandan who crossed into Uganda. Otherwise, Banyarwanda as a community are native, just like any other tribe in Uganda here. If you like to see it, you go back as 1911. That was right in the colonial time. You will find a census result, and that result will show you that Banyarwanda are actually one of the populous communities in the census results of Uganda Protectorate by that time. If you go to 1921, you will find them there. And actually, they are not just there. They are ranking the bigger communities, and they are just among the number 1 to 4, 5, right?
So then what happens? How is it that it moves from those colonial numbers,
yes,
which were without prejudice,
yes,
right?
Yes,
to the situation today?
Actually, I was still telling you.
Where
yes,
I meet young men and they tell me that I am from this community that was recognized by the British in 1911. And today, I am not able to access a national
ID.
How is that even possible?
Right.
You're the lawyer.
Well, I think before the law, this is not even necessarily, it's a matter of fact and circumstances. You can bring the law to apply to them, but there are circumstances and facts that I'm giving you. So if you go to further results, up to 1948, Banyarwanda are quite a big community. But I think thereafter, and especially running towards independence, you have a wave of 1959 refugees, and they come with a certain baggage to Uganda, and but also they come with a lot of energy that has benefited Uganda. From then, you start having the issue of Banyarwanda being attributed to aliens. And so you forget the national Banyarwanda
that had always been,
that has always been there, and everything Banyarwanda
becomes refugees.
Right?
Stateless people.
Stateless people. And you forget that back then, you never actually had a problem. You never had even a question. So between 59, 60s, 70s, there is a mix and a prejudice that comes with the refugees, and a misconception that starts cropping into people's minds, and some of it deliberate to fight opposition, deny opportunity so that they are moving forward. And that is where you start. Now, in the 60s, it feeds, that prejudice comes to feed into the political space that was there then. The independence politics here in Uganda was largely fomented around the region. Okay?
So Protestants and Catholics,
Protestant Catholics,
UPC being Protestant, the Democratic Party being largely Catholic.
Absolutely. And so you have Banyarwanda, who, even those in Uganda, some of them, actually, but especially like those in Chisoro then, they were all Banyarwanda at that time, were largely Catholics. And even the refugees who have come are also,
they're coming from
largely Catholics.
Catholic Rwanda.
Yes. And so, and you don't have a clear cut. Some of them have moved around, mixed. These are relatives. They have relatives, and some of them have not even gone to the camp. And so, at the end of the day, you have the politics feeding into the Banyarwanda are actually largely Catholic.
And they are a large voting bloc.
They are a large voting bloc. So now, to make sure that that bloc never benefits the opposition,
yes,
you start now stigmatizing more about Banyarwanda.
So what you're, in a nutshell, what you're saying is, because the prime minister of an independent Uganda,
yes,
was Milton Obote from the UPC, that was largely a Protestant movement.
Yes.
And he made, it seems that what you're saying is that he made the political calculation,
yes,
that if we defranchise this huge voting bloc,
yes,
we'll be able to cripple the political aspirations,
yes,
of the Catholic Democratic Party.
Yes.
Some would say that that was actually a smart move.
Possibly. And actually it moves. By 67, you have a new law called Aliens Registration and Control Act.
So now, the person who's won that political battle,
yes,
then says, you know what? I'm going to find a way to ensure that this voting bloc is never able,
yes,
to vote.
Yes, that is true. So the Aliens Registration and Control Act is one to make sure that this feared block of votes, the community is blocked, stigmatized, and made sure that is kept within control. Now, you are barred from joining a cooperative, you are barred from joining a youth group, you are barred from even trading. All right? You are barred from participating in politics, specifically, that is there. And this law evolved and found its own further place during another Obote too, around 84. The law is actually given more teeth. Okay.
So
and,
you can't group yourselves.
Yes.
You can't earn money, and you don't have any citizenship.
Yes.
Privileges.
Exactly. Now, but the effect, the biggest effect was not just that law. The biggest effect was the inculcation of prejudice against this community.
The ideology.
Yes. So you had the ruling community, ruling class then, all kind of cursing and basically outcasting this community and making sure that they are all labeled aliens. So they pick whoever they can deal with, but the rest are what?
So the group is dangerous. Individuals, they can
you can
survive.
choose the individuals. Okay? And now that explains, by that time, in that thick air of prejudice, of derogatory terms, which should not be. Okay? If someone wanted to isolate you and entrench that stigmatization, he will call you Nyarwanda. And this Nyarwanda was a derogatory, term that was used especially among the people from the north who are ruling then. Nyarwanda meant, especially by 80s, Nyarwanda meant you were a rebel. You are not just a rebel, you are an alien. And so you are one to be dealt with, especially eliminated.
Let's call it, don't call it dealt, killed.
Exactly. So, and by the way, remember that during that time, and especially given that that cattle corridor had a lot of Banyarwanda, including my family, I was telling you, who had joined the rebel. So Nyarwanda becomes one of the proponent of the chief Nyarwanda, who is Museveni.
So that's how they see Obote.
Obote is saying Museveni is an alien. He's a guy subject of this law. Okay? And whoever else is dealing with
are also aliens.
Exactly. So that prejudice is not only entrenched among the ruling North communities, but also the locals in Uganda and the UPC stronghold in the West. And this is how you end up with around the early 80s, 81, 80 something, when all the Banyarwanda in the West are actually expelled from Uganda and end up in another kind of no man's land because the Habyarimana is not accepting them and so on and so forth. Okay?
Actually, I think it's the General James Kabarebe, who might have been among, I think if I'm not mistaken, he tells the story of being among those people who were in that no man's land.
No man's land, exactly.
Cannot go backwards, cannot go forwards,
absolutely.
And they're just dying.
Exactly. So that prejudice, my family was in Masaka and in Buganda, in the cattle corridor here, I told you. But we were not expelled. The expulsion was more in Ankole.
Yes.
Why? Because that shows you...
But that's also where UPC was very strong.
Exactly. So the prejudice was not only here or in the north or wherever, it was everywhere.
Now, it would stand to reason then that the so-called quote-unquote Chief Munyarwanda, as Obote called Museveni when they were fighting in the bush, that this so-called Chief Munyarwanda would, after having used Banyarwanda fighters, people who are known, Fred Wijema, President Paul Kagame, as well as countless thousands of Banyarwanda to fight that war and to win that war, that it would stand to reason that he would then do the right thing, which is to say that these young men and women have proved their Ugandanness by being willing to join me in liberating their country from the clutches of a dictatorship. How is it then that almost 40 years after the fall of Kampala, we are still talking about people called Musoni and Gatabazi and Rwego still not being able to get national IDs? How is that even possible? How is that even right? How is it that the law community that you are part of, how is it that it's been almost accepted that this injustice is now entrenched, so much so that, as one of my guests said that you have these national offices, passport and national ID offices, where people there are behaving like kings, like small gods. The words that he used is small gods. If you go there with a random name, or you write on your, on your application, where they ask you tribe, you say Munyarwanda, they can use their own power to deny you. How has it come to pass?
It is a complex situation to explain. I should have been. I think that it is true. Obote called Museveni Munyarwanda. And I don't think Museveni has, of course Museveni has said it, he's not a Munyarwanda. But he has also gone on record to say, if you were a Munyarwanda, so what? He would not even have a problem. And indeed, why would he have a problem? So, but it doesn't take away that being called a Munyarwanda had a weaponization effect, okay, against anyone who would want to participate in public affairs, okay, given the context I've given you. So I would think, these are my personal views, I would think that Museveni was not lost on the role of Banyarwanda in the Ruwero War. I don't think so. But I think he once he got into power, he was also to balance it against those of the majority other communities who carry this prejudice, and he doesn't want to lose their votes. To appear that he's actually what Obote called him.
So now it almost sounds like what you're saying is he's going out of his way to prove the unprovable, because, funny enough, there's some who still call him that.
Absolutely. The paradox is, while we suffer, our community people suffer not getting a passport, not having that prejudice, okay? We are also treated as the people on the table eating. So when you find me having graduated and I'm doing well as a lawyer, they will say, well, those people. Okay? Why? Because they are drawing to the role the Banyarwanda played in the war and the relationship that they have created with Museveni over time. And so, whether or not you are privileged, it is obvious for those who hold the prejudice that actually you are part of
the group that's eating.
The group that is eating. That those are on the table.
Which is hilarious, because we were talking earlier and you're giving me an example of when you were trying to get a passport for your family. And you were talking about your personal experience in those offices. I'll let you recount for our listeners.
Well,
and viewers.
I mean, it's very interesting. So I told you I'm a Munyarwanda. I was born in a family that is Kinyarwanda speaking. I know that we are part of the native community here. My own family, although I am a third generation in that cattle corridor.
Yes.
So where they came, I mean, it's a question of oral tradition, right? But I go to passport, and I have my family. I'm taken through to data desk. I give my data, and the fact that I've said I'm a Munyarwanda,
on the form.
Yes, the data desk manager tells me very politely, she's sorry. Ordinarily, if nothing else, I would have to actually have ended at that desk and gone.
If you had written that your tribe was
now she tells me, but because you have said you are Munyarwanda, I am very sorry, sir. We are not going to end it here. So you will have to proceed to interviews with my family. All right? So already it starts haunting you why you have said you are Munyarwanda. Right?
It's almost like they are saying, we are almost tacitly, implicitly asking you to lie. And
without saying it, they would be happy if you told them you're Mchiga.
Yes.
All right?
Or Mufumbira.
Or Mufumbira. Right? But we shall have a discussion about Mufumbira and Munyarwanda. Right? So, at that point, politely, I understand. Okay? Because I have been part of this space of denial, and my members of community as a lawyer, a number of people have referred to me. I have found that because of the haunt, because of the harassment, the prejudice, some people are not as informed as the lawyer in me. So they will not go and say, I'm a Munyarwanda, deal with it, right? They are going to hide from this haunt, and they will say, I'm a Mchiga. But when you put him to task, just below the skin, he cannot prove he's a Mchiga. But he has also taken himself from the space of saying he's a Munyarwanda. So then he's an alien. Okay? He's no longer going to be a Munyarwanda. He's not a Mchiga, he lied, he is. And so he's a liar. Right? The conclusion that he's actually a Rwandan. Okay? But he will tell you, in fact, he is a fourth generation from where his family is. Okay? And then you go for the interviews, I told you. So you will find someone, a Munyarwanda like me, who is there and is interviewing you. The first thing you say, okay, Kabayiza, Muraho, Mti, what? And he will ask you, okay, you Rwanda, what's your father? And he says, I'm so and so. When did he come? From where? From Rwanda. And you said you're Munyarwanda. So, that is what we are going through. Now, you have to explain yourself. Now, the problem is that once you have opened that space of interviewing and wanting to establish my roots, you will ask documents that none of those people sitting in that office will ever get. They will tell you, okay, the Constitution provides that a native Munyarwanda or citizens by birth are those who descend from communities that were here in Uganda by the February of 1926. Right? But I've told you that the statistics of 1911
showed that there were Banyarwanda.
There were Banyarwanda here. Then the statistics of 1921 all the way show that the Banyarwanda here. So that is not enough to the immigration officer. He will probe further and say, okay, there are Banyarwanda who are here that are Rwandan. Prove that you are not one of them. Right? Now, the onus is put on you. The burden to prove is put on you to prove that you are not Rwandan. So you must take someone to your great-grandfather's grave, okay, of before 1926, or bring a document of your father working maybe for a colonial establishment, your great-grandfather working for a colonial establishment in 1920 in Uganda to show that
he was here.
Now, my brother, most people here, we are a society that is not recorded. We are a society that in the background is oral. And I've told you that we're a community that partly is explained by migration. Where we are. Migration that was not recorded across border. Okay? We are also a community that some of it is pastoral. I've told you I come from a pastoral community in the cattle corridor. So some of my relatives could have ended up in Teso, and have been there for 80 years. But they will tell you somewhere their ancestors were lost in the cattle corridor, migrating all the way from the west. So if you tell me that I should show you to the grave, it's as hard as it comes.
It almost seems like they're asking you an impossibility.
Exactly. Okay? But the person who is asking you the same thing, my friend Frank Gashumba, I have viewed his podcast, saying the only families here in Uganda that can prove their families being in Uganda 1920 and before are the royal families. Because those royal families had dealings with the colonialists. And they come from orally held tradition. So we know that the king of Toro is a great child or grandchild of King so and so of Toro, or of Bunyoro, or of Uganda. The rest of us, you can hardly go beyond your third generation back. Okay? So that becomes a problem. But I think that the problem is not the person seated on the desk demanding this, partly. Partly the problem is how the Constitution, our Constitution, dealt with the issue specifically to target the Banyarwanda. There is a part of the Constitution which says the communities, including the Banyarwanda, who are here in 1926, are citizens by birth. But the Constitution was made after Banyarwanda went back. However, by 95, when the Constitution was being made here, after the Banyarwanda had gone back, I think somewhere people felt they needed to deal with remnants, or there were some residue Banyarwandas here who they did not have, or they wanted to, tame this community called Banyarwanda. So when you look at that clause, the clause says, if you are born of a father or mother or parents who are not Banyarwanda, who are not Ugandans, but you are born here and you have lived here for at least 20 years, then you are still not a Ugandan. But you can apply. You can apply through procedures set in the law to become a citizen by registration. Now, I have told you the community of Banyarwanda here are in all categories. We have entrepreneurs, we have professionals like me, we have even political actors, we have business people, but we have largely peasants. And these peasants are not in refugee camps. They are not in gazetted communities to be identified. They are part and parcel of the state population here. And they are as good citizens in all other aspects, apart from when they go to get a passport.
So they are good citizens when they are voting,
Yes,
almost in a block
yes.
for the ruling party and its candidate. They are good
Even
citizens.
opposition, because some are voting
Yeah.
for opposition.
So they are good citizens when they join the security forces.
Yes,
They are good citizens when they are part and parcel of the tapestry of this nation. They all of a sudden become bad citizens or non-citizens when they actually want documentation.
Now, when you go to the villages and urban areas where these people live, these people are known as sons and grandsons of so and so. They are tested to that effect by LOCs, by local defense, by parish chiefs, by
The village
even
priest,
the RDC.
everyone knows them.
LOC5, some of them are in those structures. Okay? And a time has come when, out of several dialogues, they have said, okay, we have recognized the committee of Banyarwanda elders or something, but we can, if we doubt somebody, can we refer to you? Can those people provide, proof from those structures so that we can clear them? It's very easy, but that never happens. All you could say, fine. If you doubt someone, at least he has told you where he lives. At least he has given you an ID. Investigate, but don't confiscate the card, because the card has to be investigated. In fact, citizenship is a fundamental human and constitutional right. It cannot be taken away flimsily like that. But this is what is happening.
But it almost seems so thankfully, if it's okay for me to ask, you and your family have national IDs now?
Yes.
You and your family have national passports?
Yes.
So you are a privilege. It seems that you are within that place of privilege now. You're not just a man on the street. You are an advocate of the High Court. Why have you not used the power of the law to challenge state policy? Or maybe we don't even call it state policy, we call it state actors policy. Why have you never gone to, say, the Constitutional Court so that it can pronounce itself? Why have you not gone to the Supreme Court to get them to pronounce themselves on this issue?
Okay. My brother, let me tell you that law is a function of politics. Politics drive things. Law is an oil, right? So before you get to law, you want to engage. You want to not create a standoff. Unfortunately, law is about disputes. Disputes create standoffs, right?
Yes.
So before you want to go for come and buy, right?
What will be will be.
Exactly. Okay. You want to engage. You want to dialogue, and I know that this is something that can come out of engagement. Our community has engaged the leadership here, the ministers, the immigration, the head of state, and the head of state. When you actually deal with the head of state, see him about this issue, he never actually treats it as a grave thing. He actually thinks it is a very simple thing, and it is.
It is obviously not.
It is no. I mean, in how to deal with it is a very thing. What is grave is its effect on us as a community.
The lack of action.
Exactly, the lack of action and the consequences that flows from that lack of action is grave, because unlike earlier on in those years of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s, and early 2000s, society was at large. We had not developed tools of societal organization that have emerged today. We lived for a long time here, we didn't have national IDs. So you dealt with me on the prejudice that I'm in Munyarwanda only when I came to face with you, right? But I did not come to demand anything from you because the people...
As a state.
Yes, the people that I live with in the rural areas, in the communities where I live, we are at peace. And have integrated and people are the same, okay? So I don't have a problem. But now when you create the tools of society, sophisticated societal management, national ID, right? Then you start now having to come from the woods and you are facing off
with someone,
with the state agents
who is prejudiced against you.
Exactly, exactly. So that has emerged with the event of national IDs, with the event of the passport. National IDs are not a big problem on one hand, because in the villages where the people are registered, people are known. So those who get IDs are actually people on the villages who are known. But
passport now,
those who get IDs wrongly, they may be there. Those also get it because of probably a corrupt system. And I can tell you, someone who gets an ID and is a recent comer here, he's not integrated on the ground. He's easily found out. And if there are those cases must be dealt out within the law, because those come from the avenues of corruption or otherwise. Okay, some might be coming from Congo, get here, 5 years, he wants to get an ID because he's on the village somewhere. Okay, some might come from maybe Rwanda and he, 1 year, 5 years, he wants to get an ID. That might happen. But we're talking about people like me who have
We've been here for donkey years.
Exactly. Okay, and those do not only have village establishments and tradition and history, but also have features of integration. If you go to Masaka, where I'm born, I speak Uganda like Uganda, right? I am born and brought up with people that are everywhere here, even in school, right? I have been to schools where all my schoolmates are everywhere, be it in the state, be it in the business, be it in everywhere, in the professions, right? So it's very easy to establish, but I think there's a lack of will. There's a lack of goodwill, and I think this goodwill comes from, even when you look at the petitions, the engagements that community has had with the head of state, okay? Despite the debilitating effect of denial of these IDs, it's not really taken seriously. Because if you don't have an ID, you can't have a title on land. You can't get a passport.
SIM card.
You can't open up an account. You can't communicate because you can't get a SIM card. Basically, but above all, you are stateless.
So the government has made...
Okay? You are stateless.
Have made a section of its people almost stateless, if not stateless at all.
No, I mean, when you deny someone, okay, an ID, and you tell him to go get naturalization, naturalization needs that you declare which state do you belong to, which nationalization, I mean national citizenship are you denouncing. So you have to give the particulars of that nationality.
So what they want them
citizenship.
To do, so what it sounds like that the government wants them to do is to go through the naturalization process, which means saying, you know what, I used to be a Rwandan citizen.
Yes.
Now I have denounced my Rwandan citizenship.
But you can't prove that you've been a Rwandan citizen, because if you are like me, where is the Rwandan citizenship? So if you deny me a passport today, and I go to a form to fill that I'm a Rwandan citizen, what will I tell you my background is? Where is my village? Where was I born? Who is my ancestry? I mean, okay, so you are caught in between there. You deny yourself being a citizen here because you have lost citizen by birth, but you can't even prove that you're a citizen somewhere which you are denying.
So the question then is, you're saying that you don't want to go into an adversarial relationship with the state, right? So you don't want to go to court at this moment to now go into that kind of argument. On the other side, you're saying that the head of state calls it a small problem, but he's not willing, either able or willing, to do anything to change the situation as it is. So now and then on the middle, you now have a population that cannot transact, cannot call, cannot buy land, cannot apply for jobs, and cannot even go through the naturalization process because they don't have any other citizenship to first denounce before becoming a Ugandan. As they say in Kinyarwanda, amaherezo na ayahe. What can be done? How does this situation end?
Number one, I think that the first way out is if there is goodwill from the power that be. And here, I can tell you the ultimate authority lies with the fountain of honor.
The president.
The president. If the president willed that this must stop, it's a nonsense that can stop tomorrow. Right? But I get a sense, this is a personal sense. I get a sense, and that, by the way, get me right. I also don't think that the head of state, that Museveni, President Museveni, hates Banyarwanda. He does not. He has worked with Banyarwanda. He has found them quite efficient to work with. And I don't even think that he denies the fact that Banyarwanda are Ugandan, right? But at the same time, I do find personally that there is a certain level of apprehension around Banyarwanda.
That he has.
That he has, or even people in the structures share. Okay? So Banyarwanda are very good. This is my own view. They are very good if, one, they are very docile, at service and within the control of the power. Right? So you must be kept. In fact, I would dare say that this what you're seeing going on is a tool of control. Okay? To keep you beyond, to keep you short of a maximized esteem. All right?
To keep you second-class citizens.
At a certain level. Because when you come to the certain level, I think there is a level of apprehension. I don't know where it comes from. All right? So if you are tamed, and you are always kept on your defensive, then you are managed. Then someone can handpick, cherry pick from the community and deploy somewhere. And there are advantages that come with that. Naturally, Banyarwanda are hard workers, they are efficient, and they have also a level of ethos that are espoused in community service. So when they are deployed, those attributes are very beneficial to the authority, right? But on two levels. One, when he goes there, he will mute because he knows that he has been privileged. If you remove these prejudices and harassment, and everyone feels
the
same level, then the other apprehension arises. You seem like you're out of control of these guys.
You are taking everything for granted.
No.
You're too comfortable.
You are not sure what will come of these guys. Okay? So you better keep them suppressed. That's at one level. So cherry pick from the community of the oppressed and give to them. And if you press them somewhere, they will serve very obediently, efficiently, and you benefit. So a good Munyarwanda to the establishment is one under control and in your service. But on their own, especially when they are together, and you let them mobilize, promote their culture, solidarity, and so on, creates a level of apprehension. And I think this apprehension is what breeds this lack of goodwill to sort the matter because it benefits as long as, by the way, as long as it has gone on, it has not affected the block vote largely.
So he mistreats us.
Yes.
But we keep voting for him.
But we have also largely from two things. One, we own up the system because we are part of the liberation.
Yes.
So this system is ours. Okay? We own it by reason that we are part of what the effort that brought it in place. Two, even if you run away from it, the community perceives you as part of it. They will still take you to be part of it.
The Baganda, the Teso,
everyone will think that you are one of them.
You and the Bahima.
Exactly. You understand?
Are in control.
Exactly. So by those two reasons, necessarily, when time comes to determine this, we actually vote. And we like it. We vote it. Okay? Why? Because we own it. But number two, even if we want to run away from it, it will still be attributed to us.
Yes.
But the other thing is that a large number of our community perceives that from the prejudices of the 60s and the 80s,
it's better now.
The problems notwithstanding, Museveni is our protector. So they will still vote. Okay? But how long will that go? I don't know.
You know what it sounds like?
Yes.
You know when they talk about Stockholm Syndrome?
Yes.
It sounds like we have collective Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes.
We're in prison. Now they've let us out. But then we think we're still in prison.
Yes.
And we are not fully liberated.
Yes.
And it would also seem that the systems that be want to keep us in that Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes. Yes. So there is that dilemma, but
so then what to do? That's what I want to know.
Okay, what to do is one. I think that people will start making extra, if not desperate, effort. One effort is, I mean, when you consult me, I'll tell you, fundamentally the problem, whoever is doing whatever is doing, is taking advantage of a clause in the Constitution. So one of the solutions is, why don't you remove that clause? Because it is bringing disharmony and it is adding no value. Because where Kabayiza is settled in Ruengo, it's very hard to tell me, shift away and go. Of course, all Banyarwanda here have relatives in Rwanda. Make no mistake. Even Banyankole have relatives in Rwanda. Vice versa. So, while I'll tell you that I'm a Munyarwanda, I will also tell you that I'm not a Munyarwanda who doesn't have a single relative in Rwanda. Okay? I mean, Ugandan. There are so many. Okay? So, when you deny me citizenship, unless you go to an extra end to go and say, go pack up and shift from your ancestral land in Masaka and go back. I don't know where. Right? So while you're causing all these problems, you are building a certain space of disgruntlement that is not good. Over time, people will say, okay, we've been voting for 40 years and nothing is coming. So recently, people voted in Masaka, in Uganda, and I don't think I want to attribute it to Banyarwanda vote, but largely the national party did not perform very well. And it all boiled down to say, oh, Banyarwanda have given up the NRM. Okay, because largely when you see people who have voted in that region, okay, some of them were Banyarwanda, okay, and in the opposition, nevertheless, or others of government, of national party, but there was this feeling that Banyarwanda are starting to not vote NRM. Now, we don't have to get to that level. We can actually
just
re-engage.
Change the clause.
Yes, re-engage. And we have started doing that. I am not a leader in the Banyarwanda community. I'm just a lawyer and a member, all right? But I know the effort that, people are making. And just a few days ago, I was reading, we have one of our members who represents Banyarwanda community in Buganda, Ruchiko. Buganda Ruchiko is a traditional parliamentary structure. Now, all said and done, I can tell you that in Uganda here, Banyarwanda have largely been treated very well. Okay? Baganda have been very accommodating for Banyarwanda. They have allowed them to integrate. They have recognized them. They don't demand that you convert to become a Muganda before you are recognized as a member of the community and the subject of the Kabaka, which we all appreciate. Okay, I have told you of the migrations of 1920s and so on and so forth, and we are part of the community. So I was telling you that in Uganda here we have not had a problem largely. Once in a while you receive these superficial, prejudicial statements of a few individuals here and there, but largely we do not have a problem. And as I've told you previously, we have had even the deputy speaker of the Ruchiko in Uganda as a Munyarwanda,
Yes.
Dr. Semajeje Hijiro. Now we have a young man called Kaitana. He's there.
Kaitana was arrested.
Kaitana Simon, he was arrested. I read on the social media, I don't know whether it's true,
Yes.
but the fact is that he is probably in the effort, because he's one of the community leaders, is trying to mobilize people, understand the problem, and consult them on a possible review of the Constitution. Because
Article 10.
Article 10. They are trying to, there is a process to review the Constitution, and we think that along that, we might propose to have that provision reviewed. We don't have to go to court to spend 10 years litigating about an amendment if it can be handled through the political, social engagement, all right? But unfortunately, I was reading on the social media that his effort to bring people together
to talk.
Yes, was dispersed by police. Now, why is that? Of course, anything that touches on the politics, because if you're talking about constitutional aspects, you're talking about politics.
If they had met to discuss an after party,
yes,
no problem.
If they had met, even if they were 1,000, and he's marrying off his sister,
yeah, no problem.
No problem.
But a small group of Banyarwanda sitting down to meet, to discuss what they're going to do about...
It feeds in the other apprehension I was talking about.
So they bring in the forces of order.
Yes. Now, of course, I can assure you, even if it was a political grouping, recently we've had MK, who is my great...
Muhoozi Kainerugaba.
I think I like the effort that goes on in that direction of his. I think he espouses and he has a foresight to right certain wrongs here. But when you see what has been going on in the effort of his mobilization, there has not been police dispersal, right?
So then that brings me back to it almost seems,
yes,
even your response, it almost seems to me, you forgive me, is that you're hoping against hope.
Yes.
You see, you're showing me, I believe in the saying that if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck,
must be one.
It is a duck.
Yes.
Now, you're saying, okay, we don't want to go to court. We don't want to be adversarial. We want to be able to have some kind of consultative engagement.
Yes.
Now, when our group comes together to come up with a position that we shall then use to then have a proper consultation with the font of knowledge, then the state apparatus comes to disperse.
Absolutely.
This very group, I would say that the state apparatus has showed you who they are.
Yes.
Why are you still here? It seems they don't want you.
Well, I have been part of the Uganda Uganda society, and I've been a silent witness to the politics and the playouts in the political space here. I want to tell you that while there was this dispersal of the gathering, I don't want to right away say that this was an order from above, right? Sometimes our police and state apparatus might act either in error or overzealously, or not sure of what to be judged like, and they decide to take the safer route. The safer route is not to allow the gathering unless you are sure that the power from above has a blessing for it, right? So either you have a blessing. I was talking about General Muhoozi's gatherings. Mm-hmm. No one has disbursed them because they have
a blessing,
right? So if we have a blessing to gather the views of our community, put together a proposal, a petition to take either to the Speaker of Parliament or to a committee that will be reviewing, I'm sure there's going to be a set of proposed amendment to the Constitution. So we'd want to bring that along with others. We go to the appropriate Committee of Parliament as one community, and you cannot do that unless you have consulted your community. Now, you need to have a blessing to do that. If you do not, then you have a problem. Unless you are so connected. There is a saying nowadays called Gambanog. Gambanog means talk to the above authorities. Okay, when someone comes and wants to put you in order, you will sometimes say, you know what, the authorities above the laws. So unless you have that, then you are not going to manage. Otherwise, the position should be, let people consult the members of community, let there be assistance of professionals like us, put together a document, suggest in the proper language that we feel should be. We can get ideas from whosoever and then suggest how to deal with this clause, because it's causing a lot of problems. 2, if it is not done, then you're going to have two likelihoods. You're going to have a disintegrated, unhappy community, disgruntled, and you don't know what is going to come of that. 2, you are also going to have a likely space of divide and rule. Among us, there might be people who are willing to do anything. And I can tell you, already there are signs because of the prejudices. This prejudice from over how many years? 60 years. From the 60s to date. You have people haunted, have lost self-esteem. How do you see this? The haunting, the prejudice, the harassment of Banyarwanda, Kanyarwanda, Nyarwanda, Bavandimwe. Okay, by the way, back in Masaka, even Bavandimwe sometimes is used to derogatory to Banyarwanda. Okay, although it's a good word, means brothers, right? But sometimes it is used, even they say Bavandimwe, it means those ones. So it becomes them and us, right? But I have seen forces evolving from the Constituent Assembly. I told you up to 1995, every Kinyarwanda speaking people in Uganda were called Banyarwanda.
So before 1995?
Yes.
There was no such a thing as a Bafumbira.
No, Bafumbira became a coined word from the 80s when Banyarwanda were being expelled. So that time, I think there is an old man called Mateche, and he was a minister in Ministry of I think Ministry of Education. So that time they were dealing with Banyarwanda, and somehow he comes around and says, because the entire district of Chisoro area were also regarded as Banyarwanda, and indeed they were, right? So as a way of getting that cloak of shame
away from them.
He said, no, 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 no. For us, we are Bafumbira.
We are from the Bufumbira Mountains.
We are from Bufumbira Mountains. Now, I come from Masaka. People, Baganda from Masaka are called Banabuddu.
Banabuddu.
Yes, Banabuddu. Buddu is the province of Uganda that area is. And even in the Uganda Kingdom, the chief of Masaka is called Pokino. And the province is called Buddu. So people from there are called Banabuddu. But you cannot see Banabuddu is a tribe. Just like people from Bufumbira as a county or something.
But then, unfortunately,
but someone,
as per the Ugandan constitution,
yes,
there's Bafumbira.
That's true.
And then there's the Banyarwanda.
That's true. So so that was coined in the 80s. When it came to 1995 constitutional draft, there was a constituency set in place to discuss, decide, and adopt it as a constitution. So it was called a Constituent Assembly. There were Banyarwanda there. All of them came as Banyarwanda. When they got in the Constituent Assembly, some said, no, for us we have since called ourselves Bafumbira. Others said, no, we are not party to that. There was hot debate. And there were eminent members of Banyarwanda community in that Constituent Assembly. So the debate became so hot that members decided to say, but what's the problem?
If you want to be a Munyarwanda, be a Munyarwanda.
If you want to be a Mufumbira, be a Mufumbira. Let's
all
take
of
both.
Them will be in the constitution,
yes.
No problem.
Exactly.
But then today...
So we took both. But today, but why did people decide that? Because of that haunting.
Yes.
Now, it becomes a cause of de-characterization. And it comes with humiliation, it comes with loss of self-esteem, it comes with self-denial. Right? You start doubting your self-worth. Today, we have a group who are saying, let's drop being Banyarwanda. Because, you see, Banyarwanda, being a Munyarwanda is not necessarily being Rwandan. It means that you have a identity of speaking the language, of having the culture, and all the attributes that goes with it. And let me tell you, it cuts across not just Rwanda, because we are people that have a similar culture, but we live and belong to different countries. So, because of the haunting, now you're saying, I'm going to call ourselves brothers.
Vandin.
Yes.
I guess what they're pretty much saying, though,
yes,
is that they're trying to create solutions for a problem that they did not cause. Yes. But then they have to live in this space that is called Uganda and try to raise their families and build their careers. It almost sounds like quite a problem.
Okay, it's a problem, but I don't think that is how it will be solved. Let me tell you, Uganda is not the first country to have a people whose name as an identity reflects a name of a nationality elsewhere. Can I repeat? Uganda, in respect of Banyarwanda, is not the first independent country to have a citizenry community within its borders whose name is exactly the same as the nationality of another country. So it should not be a problem for you to deny who you are so that you do not have a name similar to a community or a nationality of another country. And I'll give you examples. You know people called Somalis. There's a country called Somalia.
Yes.
But it has a community called Somalis. And they are nationals. If you meet someone who is carrying a Somali passport, he will tell you he's a Somali, right? But there is also a Somali community, nationals and citizens of Kenya. And they will tell you they are Somalis. But we don't have a similar problem in Kenya as we are talking about it now. Same thing, formulation, is in Ethiopia. The eastern part of Ethiopia is all Somali.
I guess here's the thing. You are talking about, and we've been talking at this at length. You're trying to convince me that you are truly Ugandan and this is why. I'm the wrong person to convince.
No, I'm not saying I'm truly Ugandan. I'm just saying I should be accorded what
you're owed.
Yes.
But again, you are saying this on camera, and when I listen to you, it makes perfect sense.
Let me give you another example.
Now, I'm the wrong person that you should be trying to convince. As you said earlier, it is fundamentally the fault of honor. He's a smart man. He's a very intelligent man. He's a Pan-Africanist. He's dealt with Banyarwanda and other groups for his entire career.
Correct.
Your question, the Banyarwanda question is not new to him. It's not foreign to him. The solutions are also not new to him or foreign to him. I guess, and this is what I want to conclude by, fundamentally, the solutions are there. It is up to the state to actually do the right thing for its own citizens. And no matter how hard you push, I feel, no matter how many appeals and letters and well-reasoned arguments that showcase, the movements across the cattle corridor and this, it will boil down to one thing. Is there political will to solve the question? And that fundamentally is the crux of the matter. Now, it's not on you. And I think, forcing you to go through these hoops, changing names, doing this, or not changing names, or doing... You are a people, like you said, who existed before Uganda existed. Uganda found you here.
True.
And it is up to Uganda to recognize its children. And the children have their rights. And maybe I'm trying to see how such an obviously easily solved issue, why after 60 years, I'm still having these conversations.
Yes, I think you are right. I can't put it better. The only thing I want to say is I agree with you, but also I think what you're saying feeds into what I ended with. I have many other instances of nationalities. If you go to Switzerland, they are Germans, and they are called Germans. They are French guys. They are Romanis. They speak those languages, but they are called Swiss, right? He is not less a Swiss because he's German. But they are also Germans in German and speak German like him, right? And by the way, however, even if you took the route of being a Muvandimwe or being a Mufumbira, the prejudice does not end. And I want to give you an example of what our other community members in Congo. There are people who conventionally now are known as Banyamulenge. But the haunting, the denials and all that have not ended because they chose not to be called Banyarwanda. So you will be a Mufumbira, or you'll be now what Bafumbira, what has kind of helped around is because there is a territorial attribute. Okay? Now, those who choose to stay as Banyarwanda, even in Bufumbira, are regarded as aliens in the other context of prejudice. So, even if you are Muvandimwe, you will still be a Kabayiza, and you will be seen in that light, and you'll be treated no different. So, don't deny the greatest value of your human being, which is who truly you are. It is the best that you die fighting for it. I don't think we have to get to that level, but I have a lot of faith that through engagement, by reason that you cannot get rid of the community in this country, you will choose to have harmony.
I wish for nothing but the very best for this community. I wish that your optimism is rewarded. I wish that good sense prevails. And I will be observing back in Kigali what happens with the Kabayizas of Uganda. And it is my hope and prayer that the conversations that we're having today, the next time I come, maybe a year from now, to maybe have a meal in your home, will be saying that those problems that we discussed last year have been resolved. Everything is kumbaya. Unfortunately, I have a funny feeling. Maybe I'm a pessimist, but unfortunately, I feel that I might come back next year, or even the year after that, and still be having the very same conversations with you. But I just want to thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us, me and my team. It was an absolute pleasure having you. And I've learned so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I wish you and the entire community nothing but the best. The community back home, barabatasha chane, barabakunda, love you. And we want nothing but the best for you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sunny. I'm very grateful. I was honored to host you, and looking forward to hosting you again. Please keep coming.
Yes.
And best regards to Rwandans.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
If you enjoyed the conversation today, share your thoughts with us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.